Alright guys, welcome back to the section 3 of Habit Harvester, and we are going to learn how to replace bad habits with good or at least better habits, because that is one of the most effective ways to just completely obliterate bad habits in your life, is by replacing them with something a little better. So how does a habit work? We talked a little bit in the last section that a habit is like a dopamine reward. It goes from a trigger to a behavior to a positive reinforcement. And one of the books I read on habits is called The Power of Habit, and it basically said the same thing. It said that there are cues, there is the habit, and then after the habit there is a reward. And what happens is your brain understands that if it sees this cue and it does this habit, it will get this reward. And over time, that's what it wants. It wants the reward. It wants the instant gratification. Sometimes it even skips the cue. It just goes to the habit and the reward, the habit and the reward. But what we can do is change out the habit, the thing in the middle, to something more effective that still gives us the reward. So we might see a cue, something like it's lunch break, everyone else is going outside to smoke. Instead of smoking, we can get away from them and do something else productive, but still get the dopamine reward. So that the habit is still there, it just changed. Because it also said in that book that there was a guy who had some type of brain damage, like massive brain damage. He didn't know who he was. It was like Alzheimer's, I think, and he forgot a lot of stuff. But one day, it was like midsummer, and what happened was the wife of the husband who had brain damage, she was like, "Oh my goodness, he's missing. Where did he go? I have no idea where he went." And what happened was his brain had a habit that on a warm summer day, he would happen to walk down the street, go buy a piece of candy from the candy store or something like that when he was little, and then walk back up the street. And what happened was that was a habit that happened in his childhood, like every day. And he continued to do that all the way up through his adulthood. And that became a habit that was in the part of the brain that didn't get destroyed. So the habit actually got compressed into, I think it was the amygdala, which is a really, I don't want to use this term, but a lizard part of the brain, which means very early development of the brain, like central core. Controls your breathing and is connected with all these very important things. And the habit actually got squished down in there. It actually rewired itself, and that was part of his brain that didn't get destroyed. You know, he couldn't remember his name. He couldn't remember where he lived. If you asked him where he lived, he would not be able to say. But the habit part of his brain remembered that. It said, oh, if you walk up this street and take a right, and then walk up this street and take a left, that's the third house on the right, and that's where he needs to go. And that's why habits are so powerful, and you need to understand what effect they can have in your life. So we're going to take the bad habit of smoking and we're going to turn it into something better, which commonly a lot of people do. Now, you have the cue, which is like, it might be going outside on a sunny day, it might be when you get stressed, it might be, there's all kinds of reasons. I'm sure on the previous section you listed all kinds of, I think 5 to 10 habits that you wanted to get rid of, and then next to that I told you to write why and the trigger, what caused that habit. You know, what was the thing that said, all right, before I do this habit, what happens? What is this set of circumstances that is present when I perform this habit? And those could be considered triggers, but we're going to call them cue in this episode. So these are the cues. Whenever this cue happens, you need to be conscious and change it from smoking or from drinking and change it to something else. Maybe you're even on Facebook too much, and that's a habit that you want to get off of. So whenever you feel the urge to get on Facebook, understand whatever your situation is. Maybe you're just around friends and they're not talking about something really interesting. Write that down as the cue. That's the cue that makes you want to get on Facebook. And then you know what the habit is. The habit is getting on Facebook. And then the reward is the dopamine rush you get from seeing other people's life and the awesome things that they do. And we're not even going to get on that topic. So the cue, there's the habit, and then there's the reward. We're going to change the middle section, the smoking, the habit, the drinking, the getting on Facebook, the getting out of bed mindlessly without doing anything productive, sleeping in bed all day, those habits that are at the core and are ruining your satisfaction of life. So you need to think of something that is generally like it, but is a little different, something more positive. For example, a lot of people that smoke, and they find their cues, and instead of smoking at the time that they would normally smoke, they'll do something similar, like eating Twizzlers. Now the thing is, smoking actually has a lot of psychological stuff about fixation on the mouth, because, you know, it has to do with your breathing in and your breathing out, and it has a lot to do with people fidgeting things in their hands. They like to fidget the cigarette around, and some even drinkers. You see drinkers swirling the thing around in their cup. It's just, there's also other psychological aspects. So it's good to find something that is similar to the habit, but is more productive. So instead of smoking, you can eat Twizzlers, and some people even become gum chewers. And I would much rather chew gum 24 hours a day than I would smoke 3 hours a day. It just seems like much more productive in my eyes. and I think in your eyes too. But you also want to find something that still provides the reward, and this is where the creativity comes in. You might have to think a little bit about this, and that's really what's going to lay the foundation for you to become a super successful person in the future, is by thinking about this now so that it can become a habit, it can become concrete in the future, and then you won't have to think about it. Instead of mindlessly going out for a smoke, you will mindlessly chew some gum, which is a lot better. Now, another thing about habits is that a lot of times they're also distracting, which means you become mindless. So you might not even know that you're doing a habit, which is why I suggest going out and talking with some of your friends and saying, hey, listen, be honest with me. I'm trying to become a better person. If there are any habits that have ever offended you, that have ruined our quality of relationship, or even that you think that I should change, tell me now. I need to know. And you have to have someone who is in the position to be honest with you, because I have friends who wouldn't bring stuff up that they probably should. And I think that will also help tie in the relationship. I think you guys, if two people have that kind of relationship, it'll bring them closer together. But anyways, that will help you find more. We're going to get back on the topic of replacing bad habits with good habits. It could be anything from, instead of smoking, eating Twizzlers. Instead of drinking, maybe drink some water. Or when you feel like you need that buzz, maybe go do something else that jumps up your adrenaline, like going for a run. Or going and talking to that cute girl that gets your heart beating 160 beats a minute. Just something that gets your heart racing. It's distracting almost. And then you'll think about it for the next couple days. And those kind of things, when you can change a bad habit and look at it with a new perspective and say, how can I get rid of this? Well, I can distract myself. Instead of going and drinking when I'm stressed, I can go do something else that pumps me up, gets me excited, motivated. Replace those bad habits with good habits. So I'm going to give you 3 little short tips on how you can change bad habits into good habits and help form more effective, better habits. The first one is surround yourself with like-minded people who have similar habits. So one of the reasons a lot of people smoke is simply because a lot of their friends smoke, and it's peer pressure, and you become the sum of the 5 people that you spend most of your time around. So if you're constantly around people that are smoking, that habit is going to get instilled in you. If you're around people who don't smoke, if you're around people who don't drink, if you're around people who go skydiving every weekend, if you're around people who want to build a business and that's what you want to do, or have the coolest photography art show ever and that's what you want to do, that's who you need to start hanging around. So tip number 1 is to surround yourself with like-minded people. If you want to get rid of bad habits, start hanging around with people who would almost look down upon you on that habit and be like, hey, you need to change that if you want to hang around with us. That should motivate you. Another tip is to remove cues. So this is a cue or a trigger or anything that you think will lead to an eventual bad habit. You need to find those, you need to understand what causes them, and you need to just get rid of them. Tip number 3 is to change your environment. Now sometimes some people require a mental shift, and we will get into this in a future section, but a mental shift, and that's what they need their mind to be opened. And sometimes to do that, you have to change your environment. Have you ever been on a vacation and sometimes you just get this wild idea? Sometimes you get these wild ideas simply because you're outside of an environment and your brain is going, look at all this data, look at all this new information, look at what can we do with that? And your brain will come up with new ways to overcome problems and it'll find new solutions. And just getting into a new environment around new people, around new experiences, that will help you break out of a bad habit quicker. Now the next thing we're going to talk about is a little bit clickbaity because a lot of people might look at this and go, oh my goodness, he's so wrong. But I've heard some people say it takes 21 days to create a habit. Some people say it takes 67 days to create a habit. Some people say it takes a year. But I'm going to show you how you can have a habit change instantly in the next section. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you guys enjoyed that video and want to read the book I wrote that it came from, search Amazon for Habit Harvester or click the link in the description. The book is short enough to read in one sitting, but is jam-packed with tons of information, just like you saw in this video. In fact, I've also added a few extra stories and fixed some of the errors found in this video course. There's also plenty of amazing illustrations to aid in the learning process and keep the book fun to read. If you're interested, you can buy the Kindle version for $2.99 or sign up for a month of Kindle Unlimited to get it for free, which is what I personally use, and you get access to millions of other ebooks and thousands of audiobooks included in your Kindle Unlimited membership. When you buy the Kindle version, you don't even need a Kindle to read it. You can download the Kindle app on your smartphone, download the software for PC, or even read it on Amazon.com through their cloud server. If you want to watch the rest of the videos in this series, click this thingy or check the link in the description for a playlist. Thank you guys so much for watching.